Hi, my name is Adam Golmitz. I'll be doing a speech on why politicians should have term limits. So, how many people think that politicians should have term limits? I think that they should, and majority of people think that they should too. I'm going to tell you why I think that they should. So, it forces people to look at other options, other candidates who might be running, who might get some new ideas, some new ways to fix things. You get, people can't stay in power because no matter who you are, power eventually will get to you, and you might start making some bad decisions, all that. And a majority of people want term limits. A majority of Americans, at least, they want term limits. They think that it would be a good thing, and that it should be something that every politician should have to go through. Like any good argument, though, there's always the people who have the opposite viewpoint of view, and they say that this is if you don't like them, you can always vote them out. If you don't like them, if they're doing such a bad job, you can always impeach them. But it kind of makes sense, but there's some holes in that logic. The next point they make is it's unconstitutional, which it's not. But there's a slight argument. And then the third point is that if a politician isn't in power for going to be in power for that long, they don't have the reason to learn as much to try to fix these problems, which also logically could make sense, but it just doesn't for who we're dealing with. So we're going to circle back to this first point about why politicians should have term limits, and that it forces you to look at other options, other candidates that are running for that position. This is important because have you ever been like working on a problem for school? You got homework, right? You're doing this problem, you've been spent an hour trying to figure it out, and you just can't figure this problem out. Your brain's hurting, you're in shambles, you're just having a hard time. So you go ask for help. Person looks at it, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, they come back with your answer, and you're like, how'd you do that? Like, that doesn't make sense. There's no way you only did that for 5 minutes and I couldn't figure it out for 2 hours. Another example of this would be you're looking for something, you know you left it in your room. You've cleaned your room. I'm talking a deep clean. Like you cleaned out your closet, you looked under your bed, went through your drawers, nothing. You can't find it, so you go ask for help. They walk in 30 seconds, a minute later, boom, they found it. It's like there's no way it was sitting there. Sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes or a new way of thinking to find the solutions or find what you're looking for. So that's the first point. The next point would be that you don't have you have people who can't stay in power forever, which this is a really big one because congressmen and women can stay in power till the day they die. So a lot of times if you have a Democratic congressman and a Republican president, that Democratic congressman, even though they might not want to be there, they're going to wait until there's a Democratic president. So when they leave, they'll be replaced by a Democrat and vice versa. If there's a Republican congressman and a Democratic president, that congressman is gonna wait until there's a Republican president to leave, so he'll be replaced by a Republican, which makes sense on their part. But do you want someone in that spot who doesn't even want to be in there? They're just kind of sitting there because they think that it's going to be best for the country. Um, the last point that we have for why politicians should have term limits is that people want it. Americans want this. You have a poll of 75% of Americans wish that there were term limits for all politicians. Doesn't matter what um, seat they're going to take. They want every politician to have a term limit, which is crazy that 75, 3/4 of the American population wants this, but it still won't happen. The reason that it won't happen is that the people who would vote this is the congressman, so they would be voting themselves out of a job in 8 to 10 years probably, so they aren't going to want to do that. So then you have the the other side of the argument, which is if you really don't like a politician, you can get rid of them, you can vote them out, you can impeach them, you can always get someone out of a spot, which is true. You can, but we face it, American or people in general are lazy. We don't like to do things if it's going to take a lot of effort, whether that's registering to vote or going and actually voting or just kind of like paying attention enough and researching candidates. So you can have someone you don't like, but um, if people are just too lazy, they won't actually go change it. There was a stat that 25 of 26 incumbent congressmen will be, or yeah, will be re-elected in office, whether they were good or not, because only about 60% of the population were smaller things, not regional, but like maybe state or county or city. Only 60% of people will vote for that, which means that person could be unlocked right 95% of the population in that area, but since only 60% of the people went and voted because the other ones were too lazy, that person got back in office. And then you also have that people might be afraid. Like, you have this one person, maybe they aren't like a terrible person in office, they just don't really do anything good, they don't do anything bad. They might be afraid that, let's say we go elect this other person, he or she will go and do something worse than the person who is in office right now. So that's always just the kind of things to think about. The next argument would be that it's unconstitutional to have term limits, which isn't true. You have Benjamin Franklin, who is a founding father, who said this about term limits roughly, that the government is a slave to the people, and the longer that you have people in power in the government, the more that is going to switch. So the more that the people, will become the slave to the government, which we can kind of see is happening. Um, and then the last point for this argument would be that it's not as motivating to the incentives for congressmen to become really like to know a lot about their problems and how to fix them will be gone because they're going to get kicked out of office in a few years, which it doesn't work because the people who are running for these offices, they're they are they're high achievers. They want the most. They want to be able to do the best for whoever they ran for office. So that one, sorry, that um just doesn't work. So if we go back around, we got the reasons why people should all politicians should have term limits, and it's you get new ideas, you get new ways of looking at things, new thinking, ways to fix our problems that we have. You have a majority of Americans want there to be term limits, and then you also have that you can't have corrupt people, or people who don't want to even be in the position. They can't stay in power forever. Then you have the arguments that was you can always vote them out. You can it's unconstitutional, and it'll make people not want to become as knowledgeable since they won't be there for as long. But I hope that I was able to persuade you to think how I think in this video. And yeah.